Good morning, everyone. Thank you for showing up and packing this room out so early on a Thursday morning. It's great to see everyone. My name's Daniel Yao Miller. I'm a reporter at a company called The Business of Fashion, where I cover mainly the intersection of sports with the fashion industry. I also cover other topics, including retail, luxury, and menswear. I'm joined today by Pascal Montanet, Vice President of Global Marketing at Kurt Geiger. Thank you, Pascal. I'm also joined by Heather Clark, Global Business Lead Luxury at Google UK. Thank you both so much for joining us. We're here today to talk all things integrating creators into luxury brands' DNA. First, I'd like to hand it over to my fellow panelists. You both have very impressive job titles, and I'm sure everyone is fascinated to know what you do and what that entails. So, Pascal, would you like to begin, please?
Thank you, Danielle. Good morning, everyone. I've been at Kurt Geiger for 10 years, and before that, basically my entire career has been in marketing, starting in fashion jewelry, B2C sector, product management for a sister company of Swarovski Group, and I spent quite a long time at Swarovski Group. I really, really enjoy product marketing because it gave me an insight on everything that matters, in business. And then from there, I moved on to market management for B2B because Swarovski is this very interesting business model where actually they have their feet in B2C and B2B, where basically they bring crystal as a creative component to all the creative in the world to really help them enhance their creativity. So market manager EMEA was actually working with 17 markets, mainly driving and boosting, brand desire for Swarovski, doing a lot of partnership with luxury brands. So working with Louis Vuitton and Chanel and Dolce & Gabbana and do phenomenal projects there. And we basically dipped the world in crystal. It was in the early 2000s, and there were crystals everywhere, from denims to T-shirts and everywhere. So that was a very exciting time. The business at the time was reaching the $6 billion. So it was a really key time. From there, I moved into brand communication. And brand communication for the Swarovski Group was basically to extend the presence of the brand, not just in fashion and jewelry, but also in entertainment, music, and film, because it's a creative material which lends perfectly to that industry. So again, work with a lot of creative there and really understanding, the importance of positioning and elevating the brand Swarovski into the luxury sphere. And after all those wonderful years, I moved into Kurt Geiger. It's a mid-scale business who was a footwear business who was mainly present in domestic markets. So it's a British business. And basically, my goal is to bring the brand, globally. And also to go beyond footwear. So actually now the business is more a handbag business, and it is actually footwear, so it's multi-category. So that's where I am today.
Lovely to be here today. Thank you. So I started at Google 13 years ago. I joined YouTube shortly after the acquisition in our headquarters in San Bruno, and have been working with creators since then. Back then, I would have to look at the YouTube creators about page and find their email and be like, hey, Walmart wants to pay you some money to talk about this box. Are you down to do it? And so it was very, very free back then. We have a lot more guardrails now, but progressed to eventually now I'm based here, and I lead a portion of our global luxury business and essentially act as the entry point for all things Google, YouTube, building brand, AI for top luxury brands.
Thank you both. Pascal, you said you worked nearly 10 years at Kurt Geiger now, and in that time I can imagine the creator space and the way luxury and aspirational brands interact with creators has changed so much. Could you tell me a bit about that journey you've been on with the brand and how you now operate with creators compared to back then?
Yes, of course. Very, very differently. I remember when I joined Kurt Geiger, of course, we were already working with creators, but at the time it was more like, working with bloggers, as we call them at the time. I'm showing my age. But it was fashion bloggers, and it was purely part of PR as an add-on. So it was like driving exposure, but no really slick and very, measurement system in place. And very quickly, because of, wanting to globalize the brand, I was very keen, actually, understanding better, that the role of creators. And we really, brought them into marketing and really, integrate them throughout the entire funnel. Of course, it's brand marketing is very upper funnel, but always like trying to integrate them from upper funnel to mid and lower funnel. I think that was basically the key for us. As I said at the beginning, it was part of the PR team. Now it's a fully fledged team who are fully dedicated and working with influencers, creators. All the time. They are a network throughout the globe, working also with agencies, in-house teams, in all the key markets. But also, I would say that within the company, while maybe at the beginning it was an area which was more approached as in silo. Now it's basically also working with performance marketing team at the same time as influencers. Everyone works together. So there is not one day where we actually, don't have collaboration and exchange and always working together. So it's that's really, the main difference, I would say. In terms of performance or impact, it's been phenomenal. In the last 3 years, for instance, just to give you an idea, our EMV has reached $116 million. We've basically been growing on triple digits. We're actually working with about 3,000 creators. 62% of them actually are supporting the US market. The US market has become our #1 market, and creators are critical for that expansion. We could not have done it without them because they help us relate, and they are an extension of our company. That is really how we see them. Those relationships are really, really important to us. Our retention rate is, 49%. So yeah, we couldn't be where we are today without creators marketing.
It's fascinating to hear you speak about that kind of journey that you went on with the brand, because before my role as a journalist, I worked as a sports lawyer in London, and I'd always kind of look at the fashion industry and see what they were doing with creatives and the luxury industry as well. And it always seemed that the fashion industry was a few steps behind. And I think now we're seeing in sport as well, where global sports properties are thinking themselves of brands, and now they're fully integrating creators into their businesses, but not just as a PR add-on, as you mentioned. Heather, I'd love to ask you about what you think. What have you seen since you've been working on YouTube?
So I think to your point in terms of your journey and now everything being more coordinated between groups, like I would say definitely there's a disparity between luxury brands and their level of coordination. I certainly see some, unfortunately, where it is in a PR silo and they're not communicating with media versus marketing, and I think this is absolutely key. Someone who does do that well, though, is LVMH, and who obviously is doing very well in the market, where they're even, taking pieces of content, not their main polished ads, more creative that's considered content, and they've actually been testing that against their main ads, the more polished ads, and they're seeing actually the more content style is performing better, and so they wouldn't be able to do that and gain those insights and understand what drives true brand desirability if they weren't in unison with media marketing and PR, and so it's like massively, massively important, that coordination.
We have noticed that also at Kurt Geiger. So when I was mentioning that we actually integrate creators marketing throughout the funnel, we've been actually testing paid ads with content from creators versus our branded campaign ads. And actually, every time we do it, our paid ads overperform when it's actually with creators' content. I had cases last year where actually the reach triple just by actually, having social paid ads with creators' content, but also the cost per reach was lower. So, again, it shows that, the more you actually integrate, creators' content, within your marketing strategy, the stronger the returns. And that's, I thought, was very interesting. And I think it took us quite a while to actually do that because we're very precious with our campaigns and ads, and it has to be, what we shoot. And then we're like, we need to try, and actually that's proven very, very positive, and it's something we're doing more and more.
That leads on to one thing I really wanted to ask you both. I think it's an understatement to say that traditionally luxury brands have been very protective, understandably, of their brand image, of their heritage. And I think in the early days of creators really having an impact on the industry, I think they were tentative to really give creators free rein. For example, allowing them to shoot their products in a different way, or kind of present campaigns in a different way. How do you feel, or how do you manage striking the balance between working with creators and giving them the element of freedom to take your brand and product into new arenas?
I think you give them a freedom because you choose to work with them. So you do a lot of research and you have a lot of discussion in getting to know them. And the more you know them, the better the exchange, the easier the outcome, I would say, because you want to work with them because they understand your brand, their affinity is similar to yours, their values are the same or very similar, their fashion aesthetic, fits your brand, the positioning is very similar. So, and, thanks to, platforms like Tribe Dynamic, it helps you tremendously because you can actually look at, data, and there's a lot of information that you can actually, check before going ahead, with any campaign. So I think the element of risk is probably not as it was 10 years ago. There's no risk if you actually have a very good relationship and very good exchange with the creator. I think the creator understands you, you understand the creator, it will be a success story.
Thank you. And Heather, in your role, I'm curious to ask, what are some of the trends you're seeing at the moment in terms of the creative partnership space, and in terms of your role more broadly, how do you go about facilitating these partnerships and making them the most effective possible on the platforms that you work across?
Sure. So definitely one of the trends I'm seeing, and you kind of touched on this, I'm sure you're going to hear the word authenticity a lot today. And typically how we think of authenticity is, okay, if someone's posting a lot of luxury content and then does a partnership with Amazon, for example, perhaps that doesn't feel authentic to the audience. But I think the trend that I've been seeing kind of flips the idea on its head, and it's more about the authentic connection that people have with their audiences, versus necessarily the person feeling brand appropriate. And so I think one of the best examples of that, and what really I think set the stage for these kinds of partnerships in luxuries, Emma Chamberlain and Louis Vuitton. If you think of Emma Chamberlain, she has a very quirky style of editing. She does all of her own editing herself. It's 28 hours of time that she spends editing her videos. And the reason that she broke through on YouTube is because of this unique style of editing, more raw. And so Louis Vuitton cared more about that authentic connection that she built with her audience versus necessarily feeling brand appropriate. And so her attending the fashion show, which was her first partnership with them, she basically gave her audience, who was like her and not in the fashion world, right? She wasn't a luxury creator in any respect at that point. But it really gave people more a front row seat, what's fashion about? And so I think she's a great example of that. Also, another out of category one, I'll hit a UK example, Amelia de Moldenberg. Imagine 10 years ago pitching a luxury brand. Okay, so there's this young lady, and she interviews grime stars and gamers in these things called chicken shops, which is fast casual food in the UK. Dior, are you interested? But actually, because she has that passionate audience and connection, that's what the brands are most after, so it's authenticity in that way. And so now, you think of Amelia, she started that way, now she's obviously interviewing Cher, Jennifer Lawrence, and she, for Gucci, She actually did the Ancora red carpet, so the most, Sabato De Sarno's first fashion show, lots of pressure, first new creative director in 7 years, like Gucci's like biggest moment in a very long time, over $10 billion business, who did the red carpet, Amelia de Moldenberg. And so I think it's that authenticity and connection with the audience and going out of category. And I do think that overall trends in luxury follow the creator trends as well. And so an overall trend is luxury going out of category. So you think about, normally luxury would be involved in sports more associated with wealth, let's say, like tennis. But now look at LVMH sponsoring the Olympics. And so they're going into these unique, like niche audiences and pockets that aren't necessarily traditional to reach new audiences. And so in terms of how Google works, facilitating relationships between brands and creators, I obviously have a direct relationship with all of the brands. We do have tools where we can see, similar to third-party tools, we can obviously see what different audiences, what creators they're watching on YouTube and such. So certainly the brands have that data and can make creator choices in that way. And we can also make like introductions as well, because I'm on the brand side, we have strategic partner managers who manage the relationship with top creators, and so we can make introductions. But ultimately, YouTube really stays out of the partnerships part in recent times. But this is an evolving space, and if you catch Google Marketing Live, I think we'll have some announcements soon to potentially facilitate that in a more advanced way.
Okay, we'll stay tuned.
Yeah.
Pascal, when we were speaking the other day, you mentioned a really interesting point about how Kurt Geiger as a brand was known in certain regions for certain products mainly, and then completely different in other regions. I wonder how your creative strategy plays into helping spread awareness of the brand, and do you kind of echo the thoughts mentioned by Heather about the importance of authenticity and sometimes going outside of the box to help spread awareness for your brand among new audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so Kurt Geiger is known, I think probably a lot of you know Kurt Geiger in the UK as a British footwear brand. And basically when we decided to globalize the brand, that's also there was the opportunity for us also to go into different segments, and we wanted to actually go into handbags because we actually thought that there were an opportunity there. So we actually enter new markets also with new category, the handbag category. And basically by partnering with creators, they basically help us storytell and basically bring that new category to new customers. We couldn't have done it without them because customers basically really relate when they actually see, their favorite creator, wearing, constantly, a product and talking about the brand. And it's also, to speak about the brand and to actually genuinely talk about, the values of the brand and why they're actually collecting those bags, because actually they're collectors. And I think, very often with, in marketing, we always obsessed with, media and think about ads and thinking that basically this is actually really drive, the traffic and conversion. But I think it's naive to believe that, to not think that actually influencers play a major part. I really think that, in real life, you would probably be more influenced by actually seeing your favorite creator wearing a brand than actually getting served an ad. So I'm not saying that we don't need ads. Of course we need them, but I think that impact, I think it's massive, and I really push for that. And with that in mind, I was really interested in actually trying to see whether there's a correlation between our Google trend, because of course our market shares and search volume in America in particular has grown really, really fast, particularly last year. And I wanted to see, how our EMV look like compared to our, Google, traffic volume, and you can definitely see the correlation. So we can really see how, creators have helped us gain market share, and it's visible in Google, and it's such a beautiful thing to be able to do today. it wasn't possible 10 years ago, I can assure you. It was like, just guess, you know, it was like, oh, I believe in it. But without actually being able to demonstrate it, and then this is where it's difficult, you know, because you don't have the buy-in in the executive team. And to actually today, to actually see that, you know, we can, again, by working together and actually having, you know, tools from, you know, from different areas, we can actually really see that, you know, they've been helping us. So, yeah, every market that we enter, we basically have influencers or creators as the number one, you know, element of our strategy. Again, to give you an indication, you know, in our marketing budget, 20% of the budget is the second biggest line after digital media. It's actually attributed to creators.
I mean, that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that. Heather, I'm curious to know, do you kind of echo those thoughts and feelings about the significance of creators in terms of luxury and aspirational brand marketing strategies? And I think for the last several years we've seen the explosion of the creator economy, and there's been a lot of critics and people saying that it might not be a long-term thing, but it seems to me that it's now fully baked into the core of several, like many luxury brands' marketing strategies. Do you see this as a permanent long-term shift?
Yes, definitely. I mean, and especially from the YouTube end, when Oxford Economics released a study where in 2022, YouTube actually delivered $2 billion to the creative economy. So it's $2 billion paid out, just in the UK, paid out to creators. You know, and you see YouTube particularly, you know, keeps increasing versus TV. And so people want that creator content. Yeah, I think there's haters always who have been saying influencers are over, but like there's actually I've never seen any data that proves that's going to happen. So no, I definitely see this as a long-term trend. And if anything, you know, in the examples I gave earlier, these creators have risen to the prominence of traditional celebrity. There's a lot of examples of that also, like Liza Koshy, too, who then had like her own late night show. So it's actually, I feel like actually celebrities became a bit passé, and now actually maybe celebrities and creators celebrities are gaining a little bit more footing again and more on par with creators. So no, I definitely see it as a long-term trend.
Right, thank you. And thank you so much, Heather. Thank you, Pascal. I think that is all we have time for today, but I really appreciate everyone coming out and packing this room out again. Love to see people standing at the back. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming.
Thank you.